Hello and welcome. I'm Ian Unger.
And I'm Logan Flaming.
And together we host the Ultimate Fan Podcast, the show where the greatest fans discuss the greatest in entertainment across the universe. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Pick a key.
Something has started. That's not what this episode is about.
Yeah,
This episode's about something far greater.
It's about Spidey wanting to be an Avenger.
Yeah.
far more amazing. Far more spectacular.
No, that trilogy got canned.
Oh.
Does that mean we gotta sling some
It died
expectations?
when
Nice.
it died when
Yeah.
the movie underperformed and North Korea hacked Sony.
Yeah.
Man, you guys start right off the gate here.
Pretty sad.
I think we need to branch out. We need to weave this conversation into a more intricate web than just bad puns.
Boo.
Okay, well tonight we've got some friends with us, don't we, Logan?
I mean,
we've
that's
got
a matter of perspective.
friends.
These could be people I hired off the street.
Yeah.
Hired. I'm not getting paid for this.
I'm not getting paid.
I'm getting gypped.
Once again, we have Cassie and with us. Thanks for being on the last episode, Cass. It's good to have you back.
Nods head
and
appreciatively.
what was that?
Nods head appreciatively.
Also, we have Nathan with us. Nathan, was your last episode
I'm back.
Guardians?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my last episode.
But
We brought him on
That feels
as
like forever ago.
the resident expert
Does feel
on
like forever ago.
Spider-Man.
yeah,
Yeah.
would you say that Spider-Man's your favorite superhero, Nathan?
Yes. Although
You
there
hesitated.
are some close others.
Really?
Yeah, I would say Black Panther's actually right up there.
Oh,
Whoa,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I gotta give you
Get
some.
it.
I gotta give you some comics.
Come
I've
on
got
now.
some cool-
That's what I'm talking about.
Do.
What's your favorite Black Panther run?
Okay.
That's the end of that, folks.
No chill.
Not a versed
We don't
fan.
need
Not
to-
a versed
We don't
fan.
need to talk about that. All fans are fans.
Anyways, speaking of Black Panthers, we got a new guest with us tonight, but we've been trying to get him on the podcast
And
for
the
a
joke's
while.
funny because he's black.
Hey,
We've been trying to get him on the podcast for a while. Say hi, Gordon. How's it going?
what's up, everybody? I'm just glad to finally bring some ethnic diversity to
Oh,
this.
shit.
Also, I said the first thing I'd say on this podcast is Wakanda forever. So here I am.
What's your favorite Black Panther run?
Don't ask.
Okay.
Too many to choose from.
And too many to choose from.
Where to start?
Been a fan since the movie came out.
Hey, did you see that opening weekend?
Wow.
No, so the story behind that
shade is
is
getting
it took me
thrown.
like, I don't know, like 3 weeks to see the movie because, you know, life's busy. And Logan's like, movie comes out about white people all year long. Gordon sees them all. Movie comes out about black people. Gordon doesn't see it. This is going to be the tone of this entire episode. I can feel it. No, I'm kidding.
Basically, we're taking the tone of our entire relationship to begin with in real life and just applying it to the podcast.
Hey,
All
also,
that to
you
be
have no,
said.
like, nobody who's listening has any idea what ethnicity any of us are. Like,
All right,
I
I
could be
just
Puerto
said it.
Rican. They'd have no idea.
You're not.
I'm
Puerto-
not,
You're
but I
not
could
Puerto
be.
tell
Rican.
by
I have a
people's voices.
small amount of native.
On our
Yeah,
first
Nathan's
we
a
all
hobbit.
do.
on our first podcast when we were talking about Black Panther, we made mention of the fact that we were a room full of white guys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I got name dropped on that episode. I've been name
you?
dropped on a couple episodes
Oh,
because
big
one
deal.
person threw shade that I liked Iron Man 2 over one of the other movies
Oh,
in the
yes.
MCU.
I
And
don't-
because I love Iron Man 2. It's great.
Something.
It probably was Logan. I don't
Probably. No, he's like, because Gordon said that. No.
No. I love Iron Man 2. I'm not going to be the one throwing shade about Iron Man 2. I love Iron Man 2.
But if it
It
wasn't
but it
you,
wasn't me. And I think it was
What
just
did you
the
like?
two of us.
Do you remember what it was?
It was, I forget the context of it, but it was like, Gordon was saying he loves this movie above some other movie. And I was like, yeah, I do. Because I'm sitting at home listening to the episode.
listening at home.
But anyway.
How
it's
does it
not-
feel getting a shout out? Like,
It felt dope, but it just made me want to be on this thing like
Yeah.
And
more.
here you
Are you
are.
going to
And
change
here I
your
am.
Facebook to public figure?
Dreams.
Yeah, I'm gonna have like a little
Dreams
donations
do
tab at the
come
bottom of my Facebook. Yeah. If you all want to help me pay back my student loans, though, on a serious note, that'd be great.
GoFundMe.
Go fund me.
well, how are you guys feeling tonight? How are you feeling about Spider-Man? We just watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. We're so close, you
We
guys.
only have one left before Infinity War.
Oh,
wanna
man.
rip it
because
into this,
long,
we're
hard
not
journey.
counting because we already did a Black Panther review at the beginning as our first. as our first episode. We're not going to do another episode for that, listeners. So if that's what you're worried about, Thor Ragnarok will be our last one before Infinity War drops. So, but how do you guys feel? What did you enjoy the movie tonight?
Yes.
Yes,
Very much.
absolutely. It
Very
was my
much
favorite
positive.
viewing.
Really? How
Yeah,
many times have
actually.
you seen it?
You're welcome.
Probably 3.
Oh dang! Yeah, you're ahead of me. I've only seen this movie. This is my second viewing.
Okay.
So the last time I saw it was in the theaters.
And
With a group of people.
Hold on. How many times have you seen Spider-Man 3?
Like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So good.
Like it was a lot. Honestly, Spider-Man 3 on a different tangent. I'll make this rabbit trail really short. Spider-Man 3 is one of those movies where it got better and better every time I saw it.
100%.
Like, but just terrible because I remember the first time I saw it and I was like, this movie is awful.
Legitimate, like, reaction to Spider-Man 3. The first time I watched it, I'm like, I liked it more than Spider-Man 1.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
I mean, obviously that changed. It's changed now.
No,
The
yeah,
First time
so-
I saw it, I'm like, you know what? I get that everyone does hate this movie, and I get why people hate this movie. But I'm like, I think I liked it. It was less awkward to me than Spider-Man.
Oh my gosh! No.
But
no,
then
no.
I realized, no.
I thought like this is a terrible note to end the Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah.
When I
Oh,
saw
it's such
Spider-Man 3.
it's so sour.
It was horrendous.
such a letdown.
The only upside to Spider-Man 3, in my opinion, at the time, was the whole Sandman like story arc in the movie.
oh yeah.
And I was
That
like,
was
that's fantastic.
So we're kind of getting into conversation territory a little bit. I just want to pull it back just a half step, and let's talk about if we can remember this movie, because we're gonna actually a huge part of Spider-Man: Homecoming is the legacy of Spider-Man in film, and you can't watch this movie. As a Spider-Man fan, maybe I'm sure there are plenty of people. This was their first time seeing Spider-Man on the big
They're
screen.
probably like 8.
Yeah, Gordon, you said you were 8.
I did the math before we started, and I was 8 years old when the first Spider-Man came out. And I'll
Yeah.
tell that whole story because dang, that's wild.
Yeah, but yeah, for those of us who have seen those movies, it's impossible to disassociate like our connection to those, our expectations about Spider-Man and what he's like on the screen and all those kinds of things when we watch this movie. But speaking of just Spider-Man: Homecoming, anybody remember your first viewing experiences? You were kind of talking about yours.
Yeah.
So I've talked about before on the podcast how
Yeah.
a lot of times when we go see Marvel movies, we'll take a huge freaking selfie.
Yeah.
And like just to like
Do
remind
you
us
have
of
one
like
from this view?
That's what I'm about to ready to look up right now.
Oh, lit.
I think it was
So you
during the
talk about-
no, because it was during the middle of the summer.
It was during July, but I still got a big group.
No,
to go.
totally. Gosh, we were on tour at the time, I think.
Was it a
think
momentum?
so.
Yeah. So the
No, it
least,
wasn't a momentum thing. It was a big old group thing.
No, yeah,
You were
but there-
there, I think, Ian.
Yeah, I think
No.
you weren't. Okay, because I remember my fiance and I had like just started dating at the time, so we were like maybe a month into our relationship.
This was last summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, bro.
Yes.
Oh, pulling up the group now.
Yeah, because the movie's not even
Oh,
a
it's
year
the
old
Guardians
yet.
group.
You're like lame. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so I remember we had a pretty good sized group of people. And then, gosh, I just remember walking into it. I was really excited to be seeing Spider-Man on the screen again after, like, you know, the Tobey Maguire era had passed and the Andrew Garfield era had passed. And really, I think going in, I was really curious to see the new perception that was going to be
Yeah.
surrounding. And
Yeah.
more importantly, how it was going to tie into the greater MCU as we know it now.
Yeah.
And just to see Spider-Man's role in that. I felt fulfilled overall because, I mean, you'd already gotten a taste of it in Civil War, so it left you wanting more. Kind of my biggest thing was I didn't want to see an origin film because I was like, are we going to spend like half the movie like backtracking like 8 years ago and got bit by a spider? And we all know like the origin of Spider-Man by now, whether you've read the comic books or not. And so I was interested to see like what it was going to be since they didn't have that initial like origin film, but I feel like they still had a taste of that in this movie based on just like the content and it kind of being like rough around the edges, figuring out like the powers and stuff in the suit and all this stuff. So it had enough of that like first movie feel for a new character without being a full blown origin movie.
Of Uncle Ben.
Oh gosh,
Savage.
I wasn't ready for that. I was like, what did you mean? But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think I totally agree with you on that. Like, I'll say for my first viewing, it didn't. Yeah, I was like, I had high hopes, but not like so like sky high. Like, I didn't feel burnt by the other Spider-Mans in such a way that I was like, man, I hope this one takes a But I was like, I was excited for him to be in the MCU. I was excited to see and curious, like you said, to see a new spin and like a new take on him, especially because I knew Tom Holland was young. I liked what I saw in Civil War.
Yeah.
Like that was such a good taste,
100%.
like a little like teaser, appetizer. Like I was so ready to see a full movie of him and see what he could really do and own it. And I think if you can say anything about this movie, it's not the greatest Marvel movie or the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time.
Agreed.
But
we all know what takes the. Well, I would agree with that because I already have in my head. We'll talk about it later. But what Spider-Man movie takes the cake for me?
Oh, look. Do we want to get into our rankings of like the
Spider-Man
films?
we can kind of get there later.
That's easy. I have a better ranking of that than I do of like the MCU movies.
Yeah.
It is easy.
Well, there's less of them.
Yeah,
So I
true.
did find the
But-
selfie of like all of us together.
He was
You
there.
weren't there, Ian. You and Cassie both.
I didn't
both
think
weren't
so.
there.
Yeah,
You guys weren't even
I'm pretty
dating.
sure
yet,
I
were you?
saw.
Nathan
it.
was in Montana.
Last
No, I
summer.
was in
Gordon was there.
California.
Yeah, I was there. Of
Yeah,
course.
it's true.
Was yeah.
But we got a big group.
Hold on,
Chuck,
let me see
shout
this
out to the homie Chuck.
Chuck.
I just threw my phone and Gordon couldn't catch it.
Oh yeah, that's back when. Oh wow. Yeah, there's some OGs in here.
Yeah.
Dang, son.
Anyway, what were you saying, Ian?
I don't remember. Something. Just that this movie, I don't think it didn't let anybody down that I know of. I don't know anybody who watched
I think
this
I was
movie.
the closest person that was let down.
But I mean, like it doesn't for grafting in Spider-Man into the MCU. It did what it needed to do, and
Totally.
it did it tastefully
agree
and
with
well.
that.
And like it wasn't like a letdown or a disappointment.
I felt fulfilled.
But for me, like, while this is a good Spider-Man film and Peter Parker's great and Spider-Man's great, there's just a little something that's lacking to me in this movie that a lot of the other Spider-Man films have. I think it's just more emotion, like more heart, honestly, and more darkness. Like there's a little bit more soul to like say Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, and even though they can kind of be of a mixed bag, they made both amazing Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of like heart on my sleeve, like emotion that is in those films that's not in this movie.
Yeah.
And that for me, like when I first watched Spider-Man movies, that's what I connected to about Spider-Man, and that's something that this film like lacks. And for me, like it's something that I really feel is missing in this movie.
And because he does have, and this movie is a lot lighter. I think though, as we keep going with the Spider-Man films, because we're almost assuredly going to get more.
Sure.
Yes,
So.
the next Spider-Man movie will be the first one to come after Avengers 4.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure that they're going to do almost like a Harry Potter-esque style, where it's like him through high school, kind of each year.
That'd be a lot.
Yeah, so my assumption is that this is his first one, and as we go, there's going to be like.
But
the
do you
difference
understand? Do you
between-
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
And
do. I totally
do you
get what
guys
you're
feel
saying.
that?
I do.
It's pretty
I
light.
think
It's pretty simple.
I remember going into this movie, I had a lot of excitement because
Same.
I loved what I saw in Civil War just so much. I think he was like Spider-Man in Civil War was just so great, so perfect, and he added like a lot in a movie full, just jam-packed full of like great hero moments. Like he shines, he doesn't get really overshadowed, which is saying something. So I had a lot of excitement to see him again. I didn't really have a lot of expectations as far as what I thought the movie would be. So, and I think walking out of it, I remember feeling very pleasant in general.
I felt pleasant.
I felt pleasant.
The
about
warm
it.
fuzzies.
You
But,
didn't feel like
I was
bad.
very like I was just like, wow, that was like so fun. Like I really enjoyed watching that. I think I did feel sort of, I think similar to what you're saying, Logan, that it was an origin film. It felt very like the beginning of something.
But-
so I think
I think that was Gordon who was kind of saying that, but yeah.
yeah, it felt like what? Oh, it felt like something. Like it's starting something bigger. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really. I don't know. Like I'm so bad with sport analogies, but take it all the way in for the touchdown.
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
I don't know.
Boo.
Yeah, I
Stick
don't know
with the
anything
drama
about
analogies.
sports.
You
I
could have
don't-
said
I
like
know
the
nothing.
monologue felt like it fell flat or something like that.
I
That
think
analogy should have stayed at the bench.
Yeah, we're gonna bench that
So
one.
benches are
No more
baseball. and I'm
sports
kidding.
aid.
That wasn't very good either, Logan.
Sidelines should have stayed on the side.
Oh,
bunch
there you
of
go. That's better.
creatives
It's
in a
getting
room
there.
trying to
didn't
talk
start
about
a
sports.
sports
That's what
podcast.
happens when you get like musicians and
Anyways.
creatives trying to make
Just
sports
really batting a
jokes.
So I
thousand
think
here.
I'll just say I think it does feel like the beginning of something. If the next one doesn't bring me more, I think I will be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 1 are both origin films, even more so than this film.
Yeah, 100%.
But they have more heart and more emotion than I feel.
But
this film
also,
does.
like we talk about it a lot, and we joke about like almost like we're glad we didn't see another Uncle Ben death scene.
But honestly, I feel like maybe I'm missing that in this movie.
And that's what I'm saying is like you talk about how much heart those how much like raw emotion there is, and that's because both of those movies involve that, and you have to watch Peter deal with that. Whereas in this movie, we've seen a Peter who's like it feels like it's several years prior.
and like
he's had time
Spider-Man
to deal
2,
with
like
it.
you're dealing with the Parker luck, which is everything that like Peter tries to do seems to go wrong for him.
Yep.
Yeah.
The relationship drama, like he's a freaking mess in that movie. And
Yes.
then I love that. And then also in Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's dealing with like a lot of relationship drama with Gwen. He's dealing with a lot. He's very much in the dumps there too. And I think Spider-Man like being super light and super fun is fun, but for me, I don't think I connect with it in the same way when I do when he is like at his lowest point.
You know how I feel about this movie. It's a first issue, of like a comic book arc.
That's a great analogy that
And-
honestly helps me.
There
yeah,
we go.
I think it's a first issue, and your first one, it's fun, it's fast and loose, and it like is fancy free, but like at the end of it, there's like an intro to a villain, and the second one gets dark and dour, and like
Totally, yeah, and I get that, but that may just been a problem with my expectations with this movie.
yeah.
Because those are the things I loved so much from those first movies that I was expecting more of that.
But it's a real observation. Like this movie does not have like that kind of darkness or those kinds of like the darkest it gets is in that.
Yeah, but I feel like
Brooding.
ultimately it has the potential to get there though.
Yeah,
totally.
yes.
With the proper like character building and stuff through maybe a movie or two.
Yeah, this movie is trying to do something very decidedly different, and I applaud it, but I personally just don't connect with it in the same way.
I just had like
I
a
saw that-
what
I
if
saw that lightning
revelation.
bolt hit you.
What if May dies? Like maybe not second movie, maybe not
okay.
third movie,
But
but like what if she like that would be a different
Okay,
thing.
maybe
than-
like
Really?
fourth movie.
Like you're
I
upset
can see
about
that.
MJ being black,
feel
but you're
like-
not upset about
Gosh
the
dang!
potential
What
of
was
May
the
dying?
comic?
That
Because
just
there
be
was
such
an
a
arc
huge
of comic books
curveball.
where she dies, and I think it was in Civil War.
No, well, you're thinking of Brand New Day, which just puts a real bad taste in my mouth because Peter Parker makes a deal with Mephisto to keep what's her name, Aunt May alive.
Yeah.
But the whole like turnover is that his marriage with MJ never happened,
Yeah,
and that's
sad.
completely wiped from his brain and the existence of the Marvel timeline, so that they were never married.
Gotcha.
That's like one of the most controversial like
Yeah, that's wild.
happenings in comics, and it's been reviled for ever since it happened.
Reviled.
Yeah, so let's stay as far away from Brand New Day as possible.
I'm just
Mephisto shows up in the sequel. We're gonna start having issues.
I'm just saying when I look at this movie right
That'll
now,
get dark.
she's his closest relationship,
That's true.
and like it. That's where I think
You
the-
boy Ned,
Yeah.
No, he's
you
close
can't
with Ned,
kill Ned.
but like,
man in a chair.
like he and May are like they're all that each other has,
Right.
essentially.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
anyways, Nathan, how was your first viewing? We're not forgetting you.
Similar to
I forgot Nathan.
similar to.
gosh.
Well, I was just about to agree with you. Darn it.
I take it back.
Thanks, buddy.
Not anymore.
I was gonna say my perceptive has changed a little bit now.
Perception?
Thank you.
That's very perceptive of me.
But originally I was left wanting. And I think maybe that was because coming out of the other two storylines where we got to see a more mature Spider-Man, I felt we were lacking the physical dominance and prowess of Spider-Man in this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Because I
And
feel
I was
like he's more
disappointed.
physical than like any other Spider-Man film.
Except for
Really?
maybe Spider-Man 2.
Okay, so I felt like in Civil War.
Hold on, Nathan. While he's doing this, he's literally doing the Spider-Man like web hands to like illustrate his point.
Go
like,
web, go. Fly.
like
in
the
Civil
rock
War
fist that he does like to do the webs. Nathan's literally doing that
All
like
right.
unconsciously.
In Civil War, he so we see two like physically awesome feats. First,
Yes.
he catches
Cap shield.
Well, he steals
he
Cap's
grabs
shield.
it.
Yeah.
He catches Winter Soldier's fist, which is just
Yeah.
like what?
So
and
dope.
then,
I
and then
love
acts
that
like it's
moment,
nothing.
yeah.
He's like, "Whoa, you have a metal arm? What?"
Yeah.
and you're
And Winter
the
Soldier
audience
is like,
yeah. And then he catches that ramp when
Yeah.
Cap drops it on him, and I
just holds it up like it's nothing.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like we really got that in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
you did.
You see him lift a roof off himself.
Yeah, that moment at the end, I think that's comparable
And
to
hold
the ramp.
Fair.
the ferry together.
And I think the whole point of this movie is him struggling with the fact that he has all these abilities but no way to exercise him, and also when he is trying to exercise them, dealing with his own inexperience and like lack of training.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah, which
the
is
fact
why
that
I'm okay
he
with it now.
Yeah.
also, I think one of the greatest strengths of this movie is that it deals with the question of the age-old question in superhero comics: what is the hero if they don't have the suit? And if you let your suit
good.
or your powers define you, then who are you as a person?
Yeah.
That's
So
huge.
I love how this movie tackles that like classic like comic book question.
And like,
Just like Spider-Man 3.
yeah.
Hey,
Does it though?
That's a really good point.
I think that's one of the best parts of this movie, but we'll get into that when we talk about Peter and his character arc and like that kind of stuff. So we've been kind of dancing around on the edge of it the whole time, but let's just dive in, whole body, get into the deep end of the pool. We can't talk about this movie without talking about the other Spider-Man films. So we don't need to spend this podcast doesn't need to be about those movies. It's about Spider-Man Homecoming. But like, how does it compare? How does it contrast? What do we feel like, how does it line up or what's it missing? We've kind of chatted about it a little bit. What does it add? What does it do differently that's new and that we like? What do we wish it had more of? Like all those kinds of things. Nothing's off limits.
Cool.
honestly, I know this is like really. This may sound harsh on this movie, and I do really enjoy Spider-Man: Homecoming, but I think I would put this
At the bottom?
not at the bottom.
Oh, boy.
right.
I would go Spider-Man 2 at the top, Spider-Man 1 below that, Amazing Spider-Man 1, then Homecoming, then Amazing Spider-Man 2, then Spider-Man 3.
Preach it, brother. Come on.
Are we on the same?
We're tracking. We're tracking
yeah.
hard. That was literally
I
almost
need to
exactly what I had in my
rewatch
head.
both of the Amazing
Because
Spider-Man.
frick,
No,
dang,
here's what
son.
we're eventually going to do is we're going to go through every Spider-Man movie and do an episode on that.
That'd be lit.
Wow.
But it ain't
be
going to
cool.
be for a while because I'm ready to get off the Marvel train once we've done all this.
Yeah. Ready to hop on that
been a
Star
good
Wars
ride.
train.
Ready to hop on
I
that
still
solo
haven't
train.
processed when Rebels ended, so we got a lot of ground to cover.
Star Wars fans, we're with you.
We're coming
we've
for
just
you.
been focusing on this.
They're coming for you. I just might be here for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to rewatch the Amazing Spider-Man films, but like
It's been a minute for me.
yeah, an Amazing Spider-Man, the first film in that series, it's not super memorable for me. Like
I had a very super memorable experience though watching that film,
Yeah.
and it really impacted me at like a very important time in my life. And it was honestly the Spider-Man for my generation.
got it.
And I was the perfect age. I was like
Got it.
I was like 14, 15 when I saw that movie, and it was like it really spoke to me.
Yeah.
Especially, and I was like, I absolutely loved Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, and that relationship's amazing.
killed it.
So like, for me that like movie, like I get why a lot of people don't like it, but it was really my Spider-Man film.
Yeah. If I was gonna like have some sort of ranking, it'd probably be like you. It'd be Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2 is probably a top 10 superhero film of all time.
100%.
It's great.
Oh my
It's
land.
so good.
It has
Of
some.
that era,
It has some moments, but like
At that era, Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 2 are still like in my top 10 superhero
yeah.
films of all
It's
time.
ridiculous how good those movies are.
Mr. Sunday Movies, he did a review. He was talking about bad moments in good comic book movies, and he talks about this fight between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, who's an incredibly done
Wait,
villain.
which fight? The bank robbing scene?
The bank robbing scene.
Okay.
And
There's
he-
lots of stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so like classic, like the supervillain's gonna go rob the bank to get some money.
I know, and
Throw in the
literally-
money bags.
He literally leaves, and he's carrying
Get
like
bags of
money
money.
bags with
It's
like
so
dollar
great.
signs
I love
on
it.
them.
I love it.
But
It's classic.
the thing about it is, there's literally like a moment where they're like he's blocking his like robotic arms, and then he punches him in the face. And there's this whole thing in the comics and whatever about Spider-Man pulling his punches so he doesn't literally kill everyone he punches.
and in Civil War.
But in that moment, he could have just knocked out Doc Ock, and like that would have fight's over. Like fight's over. That's it. Like because Doc Ock is just a guy,
Oh yeah.
you know.
With
With some
metal
dope
octopus arms.
Metal
Yeah.
arms.
Well, he didn't
That
have to kill him,
takeover
but
is
he could
mine.
definitely have just been like, little more power, boom, you're out. Like,
But I obviously couldn't because the plot demanded it.
And also,
I
he
need to
harnessed
stop
the
this
power.
train.
He harnessed the power of the sun in the palm of his hand.
Gosh, that movie's so dope.
I love Spider-Man 2.
So I actually haven't seen any of the.
oh, honey, we're about to fix that.
Any of the
You
first
married her?
three
No, I'm kidding.
Spider-Man movies.
I'm kidding. Y'all are great.
So
Dang.
yeah,
You haven't seen any of the Tobey Maguire?
none. No, I've seen
Tobey
no,
Maguire
no
is my
Tobey
boy,
Maguire.
man.
Dude, yeah.
I have
Like-
heard
I
nothing
use
but
his
bad
crying
things about
gifs.
Tobey
Honey,
Maguire.
Honey, it was X-Men, Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
Yep.
that's
It's
the
got
I'm
one
aware.
of the. It's
I
got
just
one of
haven't
the
seen
best
them.
rain
I'm
scenes in
actually-
the entire like cinematography like ever.
I'm really
That's
interested
what?
to hear your take, Cassie,
best rain
because
scene.
you weren't a child when
I
you
am
first saw it.
unsullied
Yes.
by
There's no nostalgia.
nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested
I
too.
will be very objective.
should we have her watch them by herself?
Oh, that's,
we should wait.
That's,
Just like
I
in a
don't-
darkened
I
room.
don't wanna do
Isolation.
that.
It's like a test, like as an experiment.
Gordon and I watched when the first
I
time
can't
like
have any outside influence.
the first time I watched those films, I went over to Gordon's house for a weekend in high school and we watched all three.
Yep,
Wow.
we just
Solid.
blasted through them because I
I
have
would
them all on
say-
DVD.
I have nostalgia for them, especially. I watched them so many times. I played the video games. I love them. The third one, I remember it like seeing it in the theaters, enjoying it, but like leaving the theater and like my friends being like, "Dude, what'd you think? That was so awesome," and me being like, "Yeah, but." Like,
Really?
Not so much.
yeah,
Oh man, I left the theater.
Venom,
Jack. Oh,
God,
okay, not from
freaking
that.
Harry. There's a few things in that, like, and it's the things that people don't. It's the things
No,
that
yeah,
people
yeah.
talk about.
Everyone knows
That are like,
And
yeah.
so Spider-Man 3 is such a storied legacy.
Yep.
Yeah, because there are some
A negative
really
one.
incredible things in that movie, but I think
Black suit looks so good.
it
does.
looks
They
incredible.
killed
The
it.
marketing for that film, I had a poster.
The poster is so
man.
cool.
Ridiculous.
have
You went to
one.
McDonald's and got the cups. Did anyone go to McDonald's and get the cups?
Oh,
no.
Was I the only kid that lived below poverty level at the time and like
Oh
got
my
the cups
god!
from McDonald's?
Oh my god!
I live
Let me
too
tell
far
you.
from McDonald's.
I just remember the
In a
McDonald's
van
cup.
down by the river.
So dope.
Sweet. Let's talk more about
Amazing
Well,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, let's get into actually Homecoming in
Yeah.
a little bit. But quickly going around the circle, how do you guys rank this up against? Gordon and I are on the same page. How do you rank this in like the list of Spider-Man films?
So I was kind of saying mine. Homecoming is like, it's like third or fourth for me.
So okay,
Out
I
of
feel
six.
less crazy now for not like having it at the top of my heap because I feel like coming out of this movie, everyone's like, "This is the best Spider-Man movie ever. This is the best
No,
Peter Parker
no,
ever."
no.
And I'm just like,
No, I think
yeah,
he's the
like,
best Spider-Man I've seen.
Agreed.
Yes.
And the best Peter Parker I've
Agreed.
seen.
Yes.
But
But
I
the
think
movie
as a
itself-
movie as a whole,
Yes.
it's like, I think you're right. Those other movies have like a heart, have just kind of a little bit more substance to them than
And
this
honestly,
one.
Civil War has that.
Yeah.
It really does. And I enjoy Tom Holland and Spider-Man even more in Civil War. I mean, than I actually do this film.
I don't know about that. but-
I kind of tend to agree with you.
Because I feel more levity.
I
honestly.
think that they're holding him back in Homecoming because
like
it's
they don't want
the
him to do
beginning.
too much.
Right.
too
Right.
soon.
Because
we're
give it a
enjoying
look.
him at this place in time. in high
because now
school.
because we've seen what he can do. He's gotten our attention, and now they want to sit us down and really explore like who he is as a person and who he is as Spider-Man and who he is like as a character. And I think that maybe that was why they
Yeah.
kind of held him back, like ability wise, and also because I think watching him struggle with failure is a little bit more interesting. Maybe they thought it would be more interesting than him just kicking butt the whole movie.
Yeah. No, but I think
Well, hey,
like
your
that,
husband was the
that
first one to
like
slip.
emotional climax where he's like trapped under the rubble. I kind of see that. Like Tom is ready to play that Peter.
A
Oh, yeah.
serious, more darker.
Yeah.
Peter.
But I think
I
like
think-
they just give him just a couple moments in this
I
movie.
think that like this Peter like has the potential to like surpass all previous Peters.
Yes,
I agree.
agreed.
And I expect him to in
Agreed.
future movies.
Fix it, Tom. Do your job.
That's not the problem.
No, it's not.
Tom's incredible.
Yes, he is. He does.
the writers.
He is perfect in every way.
You're great, Tom.
He does
We love you.
everything.
Yeah, if you ever hear this podcast,
You're younger than me.
Yeah, seriously.
Gosh, that is
What
such
the-
a
Doesn't
weird
that just
thought.
make you feel
Younger
like
than
a failure
everybody
in
this room
life?
right now.
Well, no, not even that. Just I respect for him, and I think that's really cool.
Any more, Nathan? You want to talk a little bit of how you rank it against the other Spider-Man films?
Yeah. So the Amazing Spider-Man films were not very memorable for me because I was
I'm glad I'm
so
not the only one there.
I was
dude.
so invested in 1 through 3.
Wow.
Come on, somebody.
I was
Okay.
when I was a kid and I realized that there was a live action Spider-Man coming to theaters and to like
Just
us.
the last day.
I was just there was something in me that just I was like I'm gonna be fulfilled. My life's gonna be complete. And
It was his Force Awakens.
This is all I need.
so it probably comes in around 4
Okay.
above the Amazing.
I think for me, not having
Wait, so
seen-
you rank Spider-Man 3 over this?
Absolutely.
You should hang out with Ethan.
Oh no.
I'm actually like.
Do you remember Ethan saying like he's like I want the crap? He's like, oh, a director's cut that fixed it. No, I want the bats.
That being said, I think this one does have more potential.
Yeah.
Like we just said.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Appreciate
In
it.
agreement.
Let's get into the movie.
Well,
Yeah.
I have one last thing to say. Just in the whole like conversation about all these Spider-Man films, just like as a character, Spider-Man is like the only other character who comes close to having the same type of like big screen legacy as him is Wolverine. And by comes close, I mean he beats him. But
Well, Batman.
I mean like Marvel,
And Marvel.
like hero.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
like
Thanks for the clarification.
just having like so many films. The difference is like Hugh Jackman was consistently Wolverine. So
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman.
yeah. Wouldn't it be
He
great
is the
to
Wolverine.
get a Tom Holland who grows up out of high school and like keeps playing Spider-Man in this universe while a younger Spider-Man like comes up underneath
Miles.
him?
Miles
what I want.
Morales.
Wouldn't that be?
That would be
That's
so
why Donald
good.
Glover's in this movie. That's
Oh,
why they're brothers in
gosh.
this movie. And that's why he
Yes.
name drops his nephew.
It's
But like,
amazing.
just wouldn't that be like to
If
see
they can
like
sustain that and people don't get like
Yeah.
busy with like contracts and money and like licensing and all that stuff, that'd be
for
dope.
like 5 or 6 years from now to have 2 Spider-Mans on screen together and like Tom like mentoring
I
Miles.
feel like Nathan just is like, Lord, you can take me after this done.
I realize my life
all I
isn't
want.
fulfilled yet.
Nathan, what's your favorite story arc?
So
much
veins
more
are
to
like
live for.
bulging on your head.
Getting all sweaty.
Just thinking
Heavy
about
breathing.
Well, I'm not that invested in the story arcs. I'm just in love with the character Logan.
Solid.
Speaking
Very
of which,
diplomatic.
there's a new Miles Morales movie coming out soon.
Yeah.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, have you guys watched
Multiverse.
the trailer for that movie?
For what?
It's an
Yes.
It's a new
animated,
animated
CGI.
Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
CG, like live action, not live action, but just like
Computer animated.
yeah, Spider-Man movie coming out in theaters in December, and it looks amazing.
Hey.
Whoa.
We'll watch the trailer later.
Yeah, let's do it.
But let's move on to kind of getting back into Homecoming, but still a little bit in this conversation vein. What do you guys think about the different choices this movie made? Different casting choices, different so we've talked about its tone, like things like they actually cast a high schooler as Peter, somebody who was 16.
And everyone they cast everyone around Peter is also like of the age of high school as well.
Yeah.
It's
Except
not
for,
like when
we
you-
found out Ned is 21.
Yeah, and it has like 3
but
kids.
at least everyone looks like they're in high school. When you watch
Yeah.
Spider-Man 1 and when you go to Midtown,
They're
They
so
are not.
old.
They
Everyone
are,
looks
they
so
know.
They look like college
Oh.
students.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even the main Spider-Man
like,
films, everyone looks super old in
Everyone,
that too.
everyone in this movie not only looks of the age to be in actual high school, but they look like they dress and act
Totally.
as high schoolers today do.
What do you guys think about his high school setting? What is it called?
It's Midtown High.
Is it called Midtown High?
Is that what they
believe so.
called it in Homecoming though?
I don't
Because
think
I
so.
mean, Ian and I were talking about this before the episode started. It doesn't feel like your typical run-of-the-mill general population high school. Like it
No,
almost
it's-
feels like a
it's like
Compass
a-
or like a charter school for like
Yeah.
Yeah.
kids, the brain kids in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like.
And they all
But
like,
also, it also might just be because like of the perception and the angle that the movie's giving us. Because Peter's in like this like elite group of like fact people who like go and compete about
Fat people?
facts like facts.
Facts.
You know,
Smart
like
people.
They're on a trivia team.
intellectuals. He's in a
There you
group
go.
of intellectuals. Sorry, let
also
me use more
academic
words.
decathlon isn't a trivia
No, it's just
team.
Ned, man. He knows it and he lives it and he loves it.
All the
Guy in
nerds
a
who listen to
chair.
our podcast just unsubscribe.
I like that one black guy on
I'm
the podcast talked
insulted.
about fat people.
But no, I think it's like you look at their PE room and they all have like really nice mats that they're all laying on when they're doing like sit-ups. Like I don't have that, and like their uniforms look nice. Like
I love
all
like
their
their
classrooms
yellow
look
like
nice.
jackets.
It's
Yeah.
kinda
Yes,
They're
me
super
too.
cool.
It's super cool.
And I love it when
When he
Spidey's-
wears it
when he
over his
wears
suit.
it.
Yeah.
in,
Did
like,
you
the
see?
damage
Did you
control
notice like
place.
how the marketing team like just
ran
took
with
off
that?
with
I
that?
love
Yeah,
it. It
that was
looks
amazing.
so cool. Yeah, because it looks awesome.
It just and it looks so like Spider-Man from the comics, just being chill and like
Yeah, hanging out.
like
more
he's
chill.
got all he can't stuff that jacket in his backpack, so he's like, well,
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter because he loses the backpack anyway.
It's fine.
Freaking
shots
idiot.
fired. Freaking idiot.
I think.
What do you think of the suit? Sorry, you were gonna say something.
I was just going to say one of the things that I kind of admire about this movie that makes it very distinct is that it makes a very intentional choice not to rehash the origin story.
Yeah, like,
Like-
him getting bit and everything.
It's just like this is just
They
like
still address
from
the
the
radioactive
beginning.
spider.
From the beginning, it's just like this is the way it is. Like he's already been bit by the spider. Like Ben has already died. Like,
Yeah.
but and it makes all of these nods, but it's just like you all know how this happens. Like we don't, and it makes a very intentional choice not to like go
Can I
back over
can I
it
ask
again.
a clarifying question? Like,
Yeah.
and anybody can answer this in the room. I don't think I caught anything that gave any indication about Uncle Ben at all.
The
in this
LARP
movie.
scene.
What LARP
No,
scene?
it's when
No,
when
it's
he
when Ned-
crawls when he crawls into the room and he's
Yeah.
talking to Ned and Ned's
Yep.
like, "Does May know?" And he's just like, "No, I don't want to tell her about this." Like after everything that happened, like
After everything she's been through. Like
Yeah.
that's the closest thing you're gonna get.
Gosh,
to,
that did a terrible job of that.
I
No,
think
it's
we're
not.
gonna.
It's
I
just
think we're gonna
implying.
get more later.
just-
I hope so.
subtle.
Because to me, like,
just
I
subtle.
didn't, and I don't think this movie, like, I didn't feel like it was missing that
Yeah.
necessarily. But I feel like if that was something I was looking for, this movie lacked in that area of making it feel like, well, this maybe it happened like 10 years ago for all we know, and it's just not that fresh, and they're over it, and they've grieved and they come to peace with it. But
But it's not because Aunt May's still like very obviously like paranoid and doesn't want to lose Peter.
yeah.
I can't tell.
And
I
then-
can't tell
and then
past those
Peter
hard
and
eyes
Ned-
that she's got for Tony Stark.
And then Peter and Ned address it.
Yeah, I think
It's just
you're
very
right.
subtle, and I actually appreciate that instead of banging us over the head with it.
Yeah.
In the opening credits,
There's actually some
Batman
like
versus Superman.
Okay.
We don't need to see the Waynes die again.
Every
the
time.
exposition
And then
is
little
handled
Bruce Wayne
like
fly.
really well in this movie. Like you're saying, Ned has this conversation. He's kind of like it's a montage of them in like different classes and
Yes.
stuff, and
Yeah.
in the high school, and Ned just like pestering him about all his abilities.
Yeah.
And it's actually a good way for like if this is your first Spider-Man experience or just like introduction to this character to catch you up kind of on what his powers are. Like, can you shoot venom like out of your mouth? You blah 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 blah. And he's like, no, I can't. Like, shut up. Like, and like it kind of gives us a survey of his powers, but also is like clever and like it's his friend being excited. Like, my friend's a superhero, and what can you do, man? But
Yeah, it's also very clever in the way it handles its connections to the universe.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like you hear like in the background of like a history class, they're talking about the Sokovia Accords. Then you have like the gym teacher like saying, Like, I'm pretty sure Captain America's a
War criminal.
war
Yeah.
criminal now, but that's okay. Let's go do.
But whatever,
Let's go do sit-ups.
I don't care.
Yeah.
All of the teachers in this movie are just so deeply uninterested in everything that
What's
they're
with
doing.
that shot?
The
like-
shop teacher.
No. The leader of the academic decathlon, when he's like in an interview after the Washington Monument, and he's
don't
like,
wanna-
I don't want to lose another student.
Not again. I was
My
like,
favorite's
whoa.
the shop teacher.
Oh yeah, the way he's
Be
like,
careful, it's away from the
hands
blades.
away from
And they're
the
like, they're
blades.
just
Doesn't even
sitting,
look up.
they're just sitting there chilling, working on alien tech in the middle of like, it's
cares?
crazy.
What do you guys think about like the choice to go with like a full tech suit? Like he has the AI, he has like the heads up display.
Oh, yeah.
He has all the different web choices.
Super
like,
sweet.
That's honestly one of my favorite things about this movie, and I think one of the best ways it like sets itself apart from other Spider-Man films.
And it's
Yeah.
totally justified because you know that if Tony Stark made a Spider-Man suit, that's exactly what
Yeah,
it would
he's
be.
going to trick it the frick out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I like the heating thing. I like the parachute. The parachute's totally like,
So
and
fun.
like the little web wings.
Yeah.
The Spider-Man drone. The Spider-Man drone
Yeah,
was
shout out to
the,
Droney.
The first thing that like made me go like, I don't. Is that a bit much? But I thought it was tastefully like
Are you
it's
talking
not
about Droney?
overused.
Are you talking about Droney?
Yeah.
I love Droney.
Can we give like a little parallel here that Droney reminded me of Ralph from Spy Kids 2?
Yeah. No, seriously, me too. When I
I
watched
was
this
like,
in theaters,
it's
I was
Ralph. Like, this is amazing. Yeah.
It made me think of Anthony
oh yeah.
from
What?
Ant-Man.
Oh.
Anthony.
Because they're both bugs.
Yeah.
They're both like little.
Droney would
sidekicks.
eat Anthony for breakfast.
That's true.
He also would live longer.
I'm
'cause
just
he has
kidding.
more
He
than
wouldn't eat him because he's a robot.
He would be the worst.
He also
off.
would live longer because he has more of a lifespan than 2 weeks.
I love the jokes that work with it too, like how the suit like is trying to give Peter relationship advice, where she's like,
yeah.
"Now's the
Now's your
moment,
chance,
Peter."
Peter.
Yes, yes, that. I love
And,
that.
like,
like the thing where it's like,
Karen's
would you
rooting
like to
for
go
ya.
into advanced combat mode or whatever? And the eyes like narrow and like
Instant
like
kill.
red
He's like,
dots.
yeah.
Karen, no.
Instant
Please
kill.
stop it with the instant kill.
One of my favorite moments, like regarding that, is the interrogation like mode.
Oh, that
So-
whole scene.
It's handled so
good.
well.
So good.
I'm a boy. I mean, America.
I know what a girl sounds like. I love the part at the end where he's like, "That's gonna dissolve in 2 hours." He's like, "No, fix this." And he's like, "Nah, you're a criminal. You deserve this."
Yeah, and
I
he's
have
like,
ice cream.
I got ice cream in there. Like, yeah.
so relatable in that moment.
Donald Glover, he just
Oh.
played. I love
So
how
good.
he like
He's
he
so
slams
chill.
the trunk and like Peter like jumps like he's
It's
scared
so
of him.
great.
And he's just like, he cares so much about Peter. He's like, "Can I give you some advice? Like, you need to get better at this part of the job." And he's like so earnest with him. He's like, "You need to suck less at this."
So good. I like all the swinging and stuff, and I like that we got a montage of him being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh,
and
how
seeing
they-
him
I
be
love-
successful
oh my
at that
gosh.
sometimes,
How
but
they
also being
how they
just
work that in, like
a
with
failure.
Tony, is just so it's just the freaking best. And also, don't they make a reference to like does whatever a spider can? Like, is that in this or is that in?
I
You
don't
might
think
be
it's-
thinking about like in the
I know
opening
they-
like Marvel flicker thing when they
Bam,
do like the
bam, bam.
they
think
play
I-
that
I
and
think,
immediately
yeah.
you think of the
Okay.
Asian woman from Spider-Man 2 on the corner like doing the ding 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 like thing on her violin. Like yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, but I think that's like I just freak out every time I hear Tony say like, "Can't you just be like a friendly neighborhood spider?" Like, I just think that's
Yeah.
such
It's
a great
super
nod.
clever.
So
Such
it's
cool
so
fan service.
like it's so Marvel. It's so Marvel comic book.
Yeah.
One of my also fun fact about like Karen, like his suit AI. It's voiced by Jennifer Connelly, who is married to Paul Bettany, who is Jarvis and Vision.
Whoa.
So it's kind of like a full circle like AI
It's
thing.
a family
Yeah, it's
business.
dope.
It's true.
So kind of on
And
like
then
the
series their baby. No, I'm kidding.
still on the same like vein of the different choices that this movie made creatively. What do you guys think about like the tying in? So I knew this was a huge cause for concern. Well, Iron Man and Happy Hogan. Like, were you guys bothered by that, or like did you think
Bothered
it
by what?
detracted from the movie? Like, just having them be in it as much as they were. Like, I know people going in, they were like, "Man, is Iron Man going to be in like this whole movie? Like, is this going to be an Iron Man movie or where Robert Downey Jr.
Oh.
takes?"
So here's
it?
the thing. I honestly, because of marketing, I expected more Tony Stark
Yeah,
and
I
more
did
Iron
too.
Man than we actually got in this film. But I think it's watching this movie, it's like the perfect amount.
And it
Like,
makes
I
sense.
love seeing Tony be the mentor, but I also love him like keeping an eye on him from afar.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like having this huge presence in the film
Mm-hmm.
because it allows Spider-Man to be Spider-Man and Tony Stark isn't like a distracting presence in the film.
Yeah. I also appreciate it kind of in the greater scheme of things, in the context of like the MCU as a whole, coming out of Civil War and into this now.
Yeah.
It would be really weird if all of a sudden like Tony Stark didn't make an appearance as much as he did in this movie.
Yeah.
Because also like he's the one providing the tech. He's the one that like gave him this cover up story for the whole thing that allowed the events of Civil War to happen. So it's like,
And especially because
to me
of,
it made sense.
Like Civil War and the whole fact that like we're trying to like monitor superheroes
Right.
now.
Yeah, and Tony even says that he like feels responsible for him, and I think that is like that's in line with his character.
Because
so
they're
I think
both kid geniuses. Like there's a natural like level of like empathy and relatability there for those two
Also,
characters.
go Team Captain America for those of you wondering which side I'm on.
He's on the side of freedom, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Freedom
I heard
and America.
someone on the Civil War podcast, which I haven't finished yet, was on Team Iron Man, and I was like, "Go home."
It was Ethan.
Oh yeah, it was Ethan. I was like,
really
you
does
can.
want the crap, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was like, you can sit down. But anyway,
Y'all can have that conversation on your
yeah,
own.
that's my tangent.
Anything else talking about like just the movie and like the different creative choices it made?
John Favreau.
I think I was just
I
gonna
love
say
Happy.
Happy is so great.
Anytime we can get Happy in the MCU,
He's
I'm so down.
he's just so solid.
Is this
He
where
just
you
handles
splice
the
in
moments so
because
well.
I'm happy?
He's
And
hilarious.
I think having Happy in it is a good choice of like involving Iron Man, I guess.
Yeah, in that
and
world.
having that
MCU,
element
yeah.
of like
Yeah.
mentoring Spider-Man
So Iron
without
Man's not, like, full
detracting
hands-on.
from it and making it into an Iron Man movie. Like this is definitely a Spider-Man movie.
And I like you get little scenes where Spider-Man like he feels like he's giving voicemails and sending texts, but like nobody's listening to them. But then when he has a conversation with Iron Man, he brings up like the specific thing about like helping the little old lady across like find directions or whatever. So you know that like he is aware and he is watching and listening.
Yeah.
And stuff is getting back to him.
Yeah.
Even though Spider-Man feels like he's not being like seen or heard.
Well, plus you have like baby monitor protocol going
Yeah.
24/7, so he's got it covered.
I think that one of the
I
things
love how he drops the pen. He's just like, of course.
so great. I think that this movie does a really good job of making itself relevant to the time that it's in. And I think
Yep.
kind of like what you were saying about the original like Iron Man trilogy, Logan, like I think that Tom Holland is the Spider-Man for this generation. And I think like that
Yeah.
we
You mean
see
like
that
the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy?
Huh?
You
Not
said
the
Iron Man.
trilogy. You
Oh,
mean
did
the
I?
Amazing Spider-Man trilogy?
That's my bad.
Yeah, but I
Yes.
think you're right.
Okay.
Like,
Yes.
the
I-
current
and
high
I'm-
school students, like we talked about this when we first saw this movie, talking about like Flash. And Gordon, I think you wanted to bring this up, but like the Flash that we see in this movie is the Flash of like today's generations. You're not getting this big like jock like character going around bullying people. It's like it's a guy who is
Nathan's
like on your level.
Nathan's like, you didn't go to my high school.
He was the jock.
In Montana.
You're not gonna get bullies like Flash at Nathan's high school.
Yeah, and get
But I
old
just
Troy,
mean like
Montana.
he's
sure.
he's one of your peers. Maybe he has like some money or something. But yeah, he's just a jerk. Like
He's a daddy's rich kid.
yeah, he's just kind of a mean kid who bullies you like verbally and like in other ways than like, you know. I think that's
True.
more relatable now.
Yeah, I think another moment that really reminded me, like, oh, this is a Spider-Man, like for this generation, is Liz.
Yeah.
When she's in the car with the Vulture and Peter, she's just on her phone the whole time.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
it's-
Logan
point.
was very
It's literally
disapproving.
irritating me. I'm just like,
but it's
It's
so
so
true.
pay attention to your date and stop worrying about like the photos that you just want to post to Instagram
No.
right now.
I gotta update my followers.
She's like, Dad,
'cause,
don't talk
my
to him. Don't grill him.
Yeah.
She does not
Yeah,
sound like that.
that irritates me.
I think that was actually a pretty
But I think it's totally relevant.
yeah.
I think, yeah, it totally is. And I think that that's something that the movie does well.
So, but you have beef, Gordon?
Man, okay, so and I think this might go back, winding it back to like the very beginning of like the first Ultimate Fan podcast episode where you talked about how you had to die to yourself when it comes to comparing it and paralleling it to the original comic books.
Yeah.
Because man, there's just something, and a lot of it too is like in Spider-Man, like Ultimate Spider-Man and Civil War and all this stuff, and every Spider-Man origin story, a lot of it like is for me is like it's a race thing because like it's a bunch of white people picking on a white dude, and it's like this movie is like all of a sudden like even the extras in the movie, you got like an Asian dude in the back, and you got you got Flash Thompson,
It's a
who's
very ethnically
Indian.
diverse high school.
Yeah, and I think that leans back to it.
And I
what
love that.
you and Cassie were saying, Ian, that is so relevant now to our culture because it's a lot more. It's colorful, for lack of a better word or a better term. Is it's very colorful and it's very diverse in its ethnicity. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Originally, I took beef with that because I'm like, yo, I want my Flash Thompson to be this super buff white guy who's just picking on this little shrimp that looks like Nathan. No, I'm kidding. But no, I'm kidding.
Nathan looks like actually Spider-Man.
We established Nathan's a hobbit.
Yeah, I am a hobbit. I'll own that.
Preferably he's gonna catch a bus back to Rivendell after this. But
they have bus route to Rivendell.
Yeah,
It's a pony. It's a Pony Express.
it's a Pony Express.
No, it's Elvish Express.
But anyways, that was my original beef. But then, going back to like Cassie's point about it just being relevant and it being like the Spider-Man for this generation. It's like, okay, I realize the change that they're making, and I've learned to accept it and be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm down with all of it.
Until they bring back Tobey Maguire.
We've kind of been chatting about all of our big points. Let's focus in just a little bit on Peter, kind of like as we wrap this up. Like, what do you guys? I love Tom Holland. I already said he is my favorite. He's my favorite portrayal of Peter and Spider-Man. Like comprehensively, I think it just feels the most comic accurate, and I think he just brings he feels very natural at it.
This is hands down the version I want to see with the Avengers.
Oh yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Especially being kind of like the rookie, like the little like young version, like the kind of young spitballing, like cracking jokes because he's so out of his league kind of character.
Yeah, I love mopey, emotional Toby, but I don't want him alongside like the
Cap
He's a slobbering
like
man.
not the
Hawkeye.
MCU.
Yeah.
He doesn't fit in that universe. Andrew Garfield's closer, but like for me,
But still not quite.
Tom
I
Holland
think,
is the guy I want with the
honestly,
Avengers.
Andrew Garfield is just too old. And I think that's
Too old to begin the train.
Too old every time.
You would put him
Too
next.
old to
You
join
would
the
put
Avengers.
Andrew Garfield next to Scarlet Witch, and then you'd be like, "Wait, he's definitely 29."
Well, and I mean like too old,
He's
like
the same
too
age
old
as
for
her.
Spider-Man. Like I think that Tom Holland's youthfulness just fits just
it's
so
huge.
well, and he just and it suits the quippiness.
Yeah, and
like
he's-
it's just like you're saying, Ian. Like it just seems so natural.
yeah,
He's so the physical aspect of him in the suit of Spider-Man is amazing. Like he has like so much like dynamics and like just exuberance in the suit.
yeah.
He's so
brings
so
so much to the
alive
character.
physically.
I feel so much more like I think it also helped. This is another big creative choice is like having the eyes on the mask be able to dilate and move.
Yeah.
Because it gives just a second, like another layer of emotion, which you see in comics. Because in the comics, whether or not his like eyes on his mask actually move, you see like it does that. Like
That's a
they
big
change his
part.
expression and his eyes get bigger or smaller to like show like surprise or like frustration
Deadpool.
or whatever. Yeah, it's like Deadpool. And I like that you can do that. And it's like that little moment where he's like, well, the baby monitor protocol. And you just see, or the whole time he's in, what is it? The damage control, like
the
like
place where
lockup thing.
the
He's
place
in
where
the
they
suit,
keep the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
but he's in the suit the whole time.
It's the same warehouse.
And he shows so much, like he expresses so much like character, and he's in the suit the entire time. We don't see any of his face, but you're right. He just brings a physicality to it that like lets us know what type
Through
of
his
person he is.
mannerisms even.
Yeah,
It gives you so much.
Yeah.
Also, a little shout out to that Deadpool reference that they did in the gym where she was like, you had never seen it behind the mask. He could be covered in scars for all you know. And I was like, oh, that's a Deadpool reference.
I didn't catch that before tonight either.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, it was sweet. I've only seen it twice.
Also, shout out to Ned, like wingman and
Ned's awesome.
Just
Ned
shouting out,
is
like,
Wade from Kim Possible. I'll tell you what.
Ned just has
I would
no
have kicked him in the
chill.
nuts if I was Peter. I would have just been like, boom.
I love it when he's like hanging out in like Peter's room and he's just wearing like the Spider-Man mask. It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
The humor in this movie is just so spot
Yeah,
on.
it's
on
so
point.
it's a
I also
amazing,
like
fun movie.
I'll give a little shout out to all the Cap videos. I think those are hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like in your wheelhouse of humor, Cassie.
Yes.
I love
I
like
just
when
think
he's
it's so
like
funny.
because it's a pre-recorded video and Cap like points to the right, but the PE teacher is
Yeah.
like standing on the left.
So funny.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
My friend,
That and
your PE teacher.
It's just so kitschy.
that and when like Ned gets caught like in the school like library, like the computer library, and he's just like, I was watching porn.
Yeah.
Just made me, I just died. It was so funny.
I just remember I was caught off guard by that in the movie.
I was too.
theater,
Me
but
too.
that
But
was
it's
There
so
was like
funny.
a hush fell over the crowd, and I just remember
And then everyone died.
Yeah, I just remember one dude in the front was like, "Ooh," and then everybody lost it because they're like, "That guy's the OG, man! Like he's taking it for his friend right now."
We got off track
So funny.
a little bit. Like, what do you guys think of Peter and Spider-Man in this movie? His arc and his story. Does it line up with other Spider-Mans?
Well, I want to get away from the comparison game a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I love his arc. I love, like I said, I love how the movie is challenging, like, who is Peter Parker, not so much who is Spider-Man. And it really challenges
Yeah.
the character, and it asks the question of, who are you if you don't have your suit? And I love that the final battle, and like all between like him and the Vulture, takes place with him in his homemade Spidey suit.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Because he gets to prove that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, not Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And actually, going back to that, when we were talking about like the advanced suit, I almost said like, but I love a Spider-Man that we know can just like be Spider-Man without a suit. And then I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Exactly.
Just some web shooters
yeah,
and some goggles.
yeah.
And
And then I was
some,
like, we
It's all
get
you
that.
need.
some tight clothes.
Yeah.
Very.
Unless
very
you're Tobey Maguire and you got your web shooters built into your wrist.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I really liked I like the moments we see in this movie where like there's like 3 or 4 big moments where it's like Peter intentionally chooses, he's given a choice to like be with friends and like do something like that a normal high schooler would do, or just like kind of like be cool, or even like use Spider-Man for his own like social gain, or like to fit in, or like to get the girl, or all these kinds of things, right? It's like first at the party where he's like gonna be like swing in and show up as Spider-Man, but then he chooses to do something else. Later on, when he's in Washington D.C., Liz comes up and talks to him, and she invites him to like go, and he could like, it's such like a flirty moment, and then he chooses not to do that, to go be Spider-Man instead, and like he just keeps making, and it again, like the final one is at prom, like he's at prom,
Yeah.
and he could just go to prom, like he could just be there,
Just have a great old night.
yeah. But every time he chooses to be Spider-Man, like he chooses to go and be the hero, and like, and I think that just shows so much like who Peter Parker is, and like that at his heart, he's already learned. We already see that Peter has learned this lesson of great power, like comes great responsibility. He already knows that if it's a choice between being a normal kid and being a hero, he has to pick being the hero.
I did appreciate that they didn't use that line in this one.
Yeah.
With great power comes great
Well,
because
they did it in the Civil War.
Well,
No, they
kind
didn't.
they didn't
Kinda.
say the line, but yeah,
No,
they had that.
But I mean, like they kind
conversation.
of get around it because
Looking out
even
for the
in
little
like
guy.
even
everything
in the even
except
when like
say it outright.
yeah, because even in like the Andrew Garfield arc, they like said something similar, but it just wasn't quite right, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, that was pointless. Like you should have just said it.
That's
But-
like, yeah, how it should have ended. I think did like a. So
No,
what
they
you're
did it-
saying is
They did it. They did it for. They
Exactly.
did do it for Civil War.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But I did really enjoy like his take on Spider-Man and his take on Peter Parker, and how it just resonates through the whole movie, this idea of morality, and how it's always so present, like in all the decisions that you mentioned, and especially at the end as he's like trying to pull this guy back, and I'm like, I had this moment on the second viewing where I was like, wow, he's not just trying to like stop the bad guy, like he's trying to save this dude's
Save
life.
him, yeah.
Like that's huge to me, and that just shows that to me that's what defines him as a superhero.
And as a hero, like what a hero is.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things that makes Spider-Man and that makes like this movie great is that he's just trying to be a hero. That's all he wants the whole movie, and he's trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think on like in like the part that he needs to grow in, he's not just trying to be a certain type of hero. He thinks that being an Avenger is like gonna bring fulfillment or like the ultimate like. And I think he's coming to terms with the fact that like being Peter in kind of this realm, like that's his final lesson that he learns, right?
Being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah. I do like what you're kind of saying, Gordon, about the vulture scene.
Mm-hmm.
I like that doesn't end with him beating like he actually is on the ground. Vulture has beaten him.
Yeah.
But like it ends with him trying to save Vulture.
Yeah, that's
like
huge.
that's
So
how
cool.
that fight ends.
Great.
And it's such a different way to end a superhero
Yeah.
fight scene because you've seen this final battle between the hero and the villain a bajillion times at this
100%.
point, and this is just a great way to separate
Yeah.
itself and to really like show the depth of the character of Peter Parker.
Do you know what else I just realized? Because we don't have like the Uncle Ben stuff and him kind of learning just like about his powers and all of that, we can focus like what you were saying, Logan. It gives us the freedom in this movie to focus on Peter's lesson being like just like who is Peter Parker and who is Spider-Man, because he's not having to he's a little bit removed from having to deal with like this whole thing of like emotional trauma and like grief, and like so we can just focus on this one lesson and this one like bit of development as opposed to like that and
The Parker look.
Which
Yeah.
all are things that we've seen multiple times before. Like we've already seen all of
Yeah,
that.
it's totally right.
and I think it'll come up
But
again.
those are the things, honestly,
but-
that I connect with most about
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
I think it'll come up just like in Guardians 2. Peter's mom's death comes up in a really big way in that, and
Yeah.
I think it'll happen.
What else?
Vulture.
You got anything else to say, Nathan?
Yes, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
I feel like Nathan's
yeah.
like the resident expert on Spider-Man, like in-house at the
Absolutely
moment. Or at
not.
least you're like the biggest fan of Spider-Man in the room right now.
What's
I
your
think.
favorite
You're the
Spider-Man
only one wearing a
run?
Spidey t-shirt right now.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm a poser.
Sweet. Are we ready to talk about Daddy Toombs?
Daddy Toombs. The best
yeah.
MCU dad, maybe?
Eagles got him beat.
Oh my gosh.
I think
So bad.
So what are our MCU dads? We got Odin, Ego,
Daddy Toombs.
Yondu, Daddy Toombs.
Daddy
and,
T'Chaka.
and are we counting
T'Chaka.
Tony
We're counting T'Chaka. No.
Oh.
Tony hasn't.
Oh, T'Chaka,
as
hands
fake
down.
dad?
Yeah,
for
T'Chaka wins.
That's a very
What?
unbiased
Best
opinion.
dad.
I think you're right.
I think
Actually,
yeah,
it's
T'Chaka
completely
is-
biased.
Most
solid.
alive
T'Chaka's-
dad.
T'Chaka's
he's
unreal.
not alive. He's very dead.
But he's
Right,
also
he
a
is
dad.
so dead.
He's also a dad with issues as well.
He's
who
also
didn't
a
make
little
it
alive.
right.
Well, he's a human being.
I like him.
He's a mixed human being, but I think he is a consistently good father, which
And
is
king.
which is a rare find in the
Wakanda
MCU.
forever.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody that we're missing, but I think T'Chaka is a pretty safe
Howard
bet.
Stark.
Ugh,
That's a
Oh,
big one.
forget
bad
that.
father.
I think great father.
Good person, bad father.
Actually, I didn't. I might. No,
How's
I,
he?
there you go.
How's
yeah.
he a bad dad?
He's never there.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Also,
Like,
remember how
borderline
Tony didn't
abandonment
like
of your
him?
child.
Also,
like,
remember the whole thing where Tony has daddy issues.
No. I'm gonna end this right now.
Okay.
Best dad in the MCU, Clint Barton. It's 100% Hawkeye.
Can't be.
Win.
Yep.
Can't
True.
be.
Except for that one time where he was like showed up and somebody was like, Clint, what are you doing here? And he's like, disappointing my kids in Civil War.
I was gonna say that was in Civil War.
To
Okay.
save the world, which is,
That's true.
by extension,
And he
saving
owed a
his
debt
kids.
to Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
people always forget that in Civil War that Cap's team isn't showing up to that airport to fight Iron. Like they're going to save
Stop.
the world.
Yeah, they're
that's
going
why
to
he
take down
gathers
some
Hawkeye
super
and
soldiers.
Ant-Man and
Tony.
everybody. Like he gathers that team
There's a
to
lot on
like
the line.
save the world. Yeah.
You have no argument, Team Iron Man. So just sit
Anyways.
down.
But yeah, Daddy Toombs, Vulture.
One of the best
He-
MCUs.
I
He's
think his,
top 5 for me.
I
He's
just
very
like.
well
I
done.
just love his design. Like
Yes.
just the design of his suit, how it moves, like how
Yeah.
creaky and like vulchy it is. Like it's just so
There's so many
great.
cool.
Is that a word?
Vulchi. Hey, babe, you're
I
looking
like
mighty
that.
vulture tonight.
It is. It's
Me
so
when I'm
great.
90 and still married.
And I think like
Yikes.
just he as like a character, as a villain, as a father is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because you see his motivation so clearly, and like he is kind of a bad person. Like he kills the guy and seems to have very little remorse.
Yeah.
Like,
I
he
think
is,
Brick killed a guy.
he is perfectly willing.
On accident.
How did this happen?
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. You should lay low for a while.
I really appreciated the casting of Vulture. Like Michael Keaton did a
He
really
just-
good job.
Michael
he
Keaton's
did an
amazing.
Also,
excellent
again,
job.
going back to comic books, because freaking Vulture in the comics looks like he's like 60.
such a
Yo,
weird
he's
guy.
so old.
He's so old. Too weak. But
Has, like,
you know what I'm
this
saying?
huge like beak nose,
and he's
like,
bald.
pointed chin.
He's got like, he's got the whatever.
He
He's
got
just
like
shoe.
the green, like
Yeah.
weird spandex thing
So-
with like the ruffled
with the
feathers.
fur like around.
Speaking of like his costume, I think it's like so amazing
fur.
that they made him look so cool and like so like contemporary.
Yeah.
But there's some great nods to like because you take this comic book character who is one of the weirdest looking comic book characters there
100%.
is, but made him look like menacing
Yeah.
and cool.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
cool.
You
I
had
love-
legitimate
do you notice
fear
that
at
on
points.
his like pilot jacket, like his pilot leather jacket, it does have like this big furry like collar that looks like a vulture's.
I love
like,
the design
kind
of
neck.
like it's almost like Air Force style, like with
Yes.
his mask and his jacket.
But the
It's
green
very
eyes are
cool.
still not, and he's got like these talon claws on his feet.
Yeah.
Like
And
so
just
cool.
the
Also,
way
I
that
just
he
love like how
moves.
bulky it is, but how it functions well.
And how it's
Totally.
clear,
it's
like
it's not like out of the blue. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I have this really dope suit that Tony Stark could have built in the cave with scraps. You know, like like this
Tony
thing.
Stark built this
Okay.
in a cave
You
with a
set
box
him
of
off
scraps.
every time.
It's honestly one of the most memorable
Obadiah.
villain
I
moments
love
in
you.
the entire MCU.
Gosh, that's one of my favorite Marvel movies.
I like
is
that
Iron
it's
Man
not
1.
just like a copy of Falcons.
Yes, that was huge.
clearly not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
But-
like that
yeah.
from the first time we see him like dive into his little compound. It's so you just see like he's been doing this for a while.
And it's
now.
pretty rock and roll.
And I
He's
love
pretty
it.
rock and roll.
I love
with
the
that suit.
backstory, like
Yeah.
of the Vulture. Like
That was great.
He's
It
been
ties
like,
it in super well.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
he and his team have been like
Doing stuff
living
since
and making a
Avengers.
living off of like
8 years.
the all the remnants, the battles that the Avengers have done.
Yeah.
That was
It's
probably
so cool.
one of the most like how it set the tone for the movie with that opening sequence of like we're working for the government and all of a sudden bigger government comes in and kicks you out and now you're gonna lose your job and you can't support your kids. Something about that felt so comic book where it opens
also
with like
so relatable
Yeah, where
and human.
it opens with villain's motivation and it humanizes the villain because
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they're not just out to rule the world but he's just a dude that's trying to like make a living for his
Yep.
family.
I also
But-
like that.
but his criminality like corrupts his character.
That's the
Yeah.
other. That's the other thing is it's such an interesting contrast between like we do see like he loves his daughter and like he says like you saved my daughter's life and like that means something to me.
He has like this
he
code.
spares Peter because of
But
that.
we also see just this unhinged, just like I don't know, like
He's willing
how
to do anything.
Almost
But,
like a ravenous,
when the plane is
just like
wrecking?
this
Yeah.
like this ravenous,
he's
like
Vulture-esque.
vulture-esqueness. He's just like we just see like he just kills people and he has no regrets.
He
about
moves
it.
on
That's
quickly.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I thought this was the
He's
anti-gravity
ruthless.
ray.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He has this like ruthlessness.
But also at the
That's
same time,
almost
he has a
unhinged.
sense of honor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which
truth.
even like you see like with him letting Peter go, but
Yeah.
then
And in the
also
end credits
yeah,
scene.
with him not revealing like Peter's identity to Matt Gargan. Also, I don't know how two quick criticisms of this movie, and it kind of involves Vulture. Number one, I don't like how this movie ends with like has a mid-credit scene of like the main villain of the first movie in prison talking to another villain in prison. That's literally the same end credit scene for Amazing Spider-Man 1.
True.
Is it?
Yep.
I don't remember.
You have the lizard, Kirk Connors talking to this like shadowy figure.
I do not remember that.
I don't remember that.
I like Amazing Spider-Man, guys.
No, yeah.
And then my second quibble
So
is
much potential.
I hate it when Peter Parker like runs out of like Midtown High after he
Oh, yeah,
leaves
yeah. We were
Liz
talking
at the
about that.
homecoming dance, and Shocker's right there just to punch him. It's just way too convenient
Because
like,
he goes out a
who
side door.
Yeah, no one knew that like like Peter was there, and like Shocker can't get there fast enough.
And
then also,
yeah.
how did he know that Peter was going to come out that door?
I think there are probably reasons that they knew Peter would come out that door. It's probably the most obvious, like, secretive exit.
But how
And
does Shocker
also,
even have time to get there?
I'm gonna say, I think
Dropped
it's
off the
reasonable
daddy
that,
tips.
like, the
They had a
vulture,
person
the
at every
vultures,
door?
no, the vulture says, like, this is my business. Like, I appreciate what you did for my daughter, so I'm gonna let you go. But, like, if you threaten me again, like, I'm gonna kill you and everybody you love. I think he expects Peter
To make a move.
to make the choice to come after him, or at least considers it a viable possibility.
Yeah.
So I think he absolutely would have prepared for like that.
And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I
but
believe
I don't buy that Shocker had time to get to the school.
I
And
think-
I don't buy that he'd be out of all the doors, he'd be at that door.
I think it seems reasonable to me.
I think you're right. Like as far as like was Shocker there at the school already because Vulture just like
There's no reason
just
why
found
he,
out.
just
he would
figured
be.
out that he was
Yeah.
Spider-Man
There's no
like in
good
that
reason.
car
I mean,
ride.
it's pretty easy to travel quickly across the metropolis of New York City.
Yeah, it takes like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Considering like
Grim.
if we're looking
that
at
show like gives everybody just a very
which is
wrong
set
idea
in
about traveling in
Portland.
Portland.
it takes forever.
Anyways,
Walking around downtown
that
streets
has
and there's like
nothing
no
to
traffic.
do
I-
with
that's not-
Spider-Man.
No, that's not
Yeah,
true.
that show's filmed in Portland.
No homeless people.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Are you guys ready for MCU ranking?
sure.
Is there anything else we want to talk about in the movie?
I do want to talk.
MJ?
I like that Vulture isn't.
Not MJ.
No.
Yeah. No, I like that Vulture
Wrong,
isn't
Dragon.
like it's not a world-ending or even a city-ending like threat. He's just a guy stealing stuff. We do see that some of the stuff he's stealing is like there's an Iron Man suit in that jet, and there's like some huge tech, but it ultimately is not like the fate of the world isn't on Spider-Man's shoulders.
But I also love that when we do get to see like all this like stuff that we've seen in past movies and this like connections to the Avengers stuff, it doesn't become an Easter egg fest.
You're
We
right.
see all these
Yeah,
things
yeah,
that don't
yeah.
pay off.
That's good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the restraint that the movie shows in those areas. I just want to talk about the reveal of Vulture as Liz's dad.
That was really
Like
good.
that,
so
and the
good.
car ride is easily my favorite part
the
of the
car
entire
ride
film.
is so
It's so
intense.
tense. I love it so much.
That was a
feels
twist
terrible.
that it
Blew my
makes-
mind in the
It
theater.
makes sense, but like I didn't see it coming at all.
Yeah.
You know, but it's one of those things where you're like, "God, I should have guessed that."
When that happened, the air dropped out of the theater
Yeah,
for like a good 5 minutes, and everyone was just like, "Oh,
So
crap."
stressed
It was
out.
like gripping the side of their chair.
Yeah.
It was awesome and easily my favorite part of the movie and the most memorable part of my experience of watching this movie for the first time.
I love when he leaves the car and he goes up to the door and he's just standing there and like the music is even and he's just looking at Liz and he's seeing his friends and they're all just like cool and it's happy and it's fine and whatever.
And his one friend.
he's just like
But it still feels so tense.
yeah, it just feels so tense. Also, I love as soon as Liz gets out of the car, how Toombs just like reaches and the gun is just like right there.
No, wild.
Like he just has
Yeah.
a gun.
like
so
what
casual.
state is this? I want to be able to carry it like that. No, I'm kidding.
New York.
It's New York. Okay,
You would too
We
if
knew
you
that.
had like evil robots invading
That's true.
alongside.
Also, if you were a
aliens.
criminal,
Yeah.
True, that too, Gordon.
That's true. All right, I take it back. I'm neither of those things.
MJ,
I do
I
wanna-
don't think
I-
Michelle is going to be Mary
I
Jane
don't think
Watson.
so either.
I remember you
I
just being
really
like
hope not.
so upset about that
I was
possibility.
still am
peeved.
upset
You were
about
very
that.
peeved.
That was like the
It's-
one
it's
thing we
not-
talked
Which
about
I'm
the car
not
ride
that
home.
peeved.
It's
Honestly,
not a
I
race
don't
thing,
care.
It's
but
a race thing for me.
Like MJ is
getting
the like the redhead bombshell from next door.
White.
And
Maybe
MJ
maybe we have the
MJ
same hangups that Gordon
isn't
has
that
about
in this
our
movie.
MJ is your
Okay.
Flash Thompson.
I
you
yes,
know, like-
I'm okay
I will,
with that.
I will point out that Aunt May is the old woman who is there to nurture Peter. Which now she's the hot woman, I guess, who's there to nurture Peter.
Who's
So
got hard eyes for Tony
my
Stark.
point is things change, and sometimes that's okay.
Right, and I agree with that too. But
Scared the.
I don't buy her as MJ. Aunt May still
That's
acts
fine.
like Aunt May. This MJ
because
doesn't
her
act like
character
MJ.
her character is completely
I will.
Different.
There's no
I
hey
do
there,
want to
Tiger.
give a shout out to Zendaya, though, just to say
She's hilarious in
I
this
love
movie.
her in
Yeah,
this
I love
movie.
her.
Really
her
enjoy
character
it.
is
She
really
adds I think she's super every moment that she has. And I think I like her interaction with Peter. I love the little bit at the end where we see like she gives him like a little
glance.
look.
Yes.
I think it's a great. I look forward to seeing her more in more Spider-Man movies.
Same.
Yeah.
Even if she's not MJ.
Let's talk a little bit about the action set pieces.
Yeah?
What I love the
fairy.
probably my favorite one.
The fairy is great.
Fairy was dope.
Fairy was
Also
awesome.
loved how it was. To me, it was just kind of a nod toward the whole train scene from Spider-Man
Yeah,
2.
when he's holding it all together.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
got
It's
that
definitely
vibe, and I
that,
was
yeah.
just like, I see you, and
For
I
me, there
respect
hasn't been a
it.
Spider-Man action scene, like excluding like Civil War, because that's its own thing.
Yeah,
That's topped that Spider-Man 2 train sequence.
100%. Nothing.
I don't
like
know.
it.
Spider-Man versus Sandman in the subway is pretty
No,
killer.
no,
You don't like
no.
that?
I
Not
know, I
even
like
close.
it, but it's
I
nowhere
like it.
near the emotionality and just the
Yeah.
great choreography.
I'm talking
that is
like
that train
where
fight
your
scene.
muscles are straining so much that's ripping the spandex of your suit. And then,
Nathan's like, that's every morning for me.
but then all of a sudden, like
Twice a
then
week.
when the
I
part
just
where he
wake
like
up.
falls forward and the dude like grabs him and then they pull him in and they like shuffle him to
Oh,
the
it's
back.
amazing. Such a classic
But
moment.
it's just an emotional roller coaster for like 2 minutes
and
of
it
the
shows
film.
the connection that Peter has with the people of
The
New
community of New York.
York. New
Yeah.
Hope.
Shout out to our sponsors, New Hope Christian College.
Yeah, another thing like in this movie that I feel is like a little missing is Spider-Man, the classic stuff of Spider-Man swinging through the streets of New York.
I was gonna
Yes.
say that it feels so like it doesn't feel
He's only
small,
in Queens.
but I don't get this vastness of New York because he's not going
and
anywhere.
those like classic like shots of Spider-Man swinging through the streets.
Because they're holding him back.
I
They're
know,
saving
and
him.
we've
Yeah.
seen it before, but
Because
it's
if they,
so
if they give
intrinsically
it,
in the
if they
visual
give it
language
all
of
to
Spider-Man.
us now, where are they gonna go?
I actually like it.
Well, we can
Like-
we can keep doing that stuff because that's Spider-Man, and I'm okay with that.
So, but I'll take it back a step from that because
it
in our
back now,
first
yeah.
Iron Man movie, he's not doing all the stuff he's doing in Age of Ultron. So we're gonna see him grow.
But I'm an impatient man. Ian.
Well, you need to
What's
learn
your name?
patience. That's your problem. I do. I
as
like
Cap
the
says,
like.
patience is important.
oh gosh,
Anyways, I like. I think it's funny, like playing on our expectations of seeing this, like getting used to seeing the CGI Spider-Man just flipping around like New York and like tall skyscraper buildings, and you have that shot from the trailers where he's like swinging with Iron Man. But I love like when he's trying to go through the suburbs,
Which that
and he's
shot
trying
isn't in
to-
the movie, by the way.
Yeah. And he's going through the suburbs and he's like jumping through across the roofs of houses and trying to swing like
It's
off
fun.
of trees.
I love that.
And then he lands in the golf course and he's like, ah, crap.
This sucks.
And he
This
just has
sucks.
to run. Yeah, like it's because that's Spider-Man in the comics. He like he'll find himself in places where he can't like shoot his webs and swing, and he's just like, well, crap. Like
Now I gotta
now what
run.
do I do?
gotta adapt to survive.
I just remember in the video games you could never go like over water because there's nothing to attach your web to.
Dude, I was a
Exactly.
hardcore. I'm talking Xbox, the first one, not Xbox One, but the first Xbox, Spider-Man 2 video game. I
Oh,
played
yeah,
that
man.
All
thing.
those games are
I
fantastic.
It's one of
played
the
that
best
thing
games,
to death, man, because it was the first like open world game or
Pizza
whatever.
Run.
That pizza run, though, man. Oh my
Pizza
gosh,
Run.
I was all about saving the contractors falling from
The
buildings. Like, help them fall! They're like, oh frick, I gotta get to the other side of the city.
Why are they always outside? Are they like?
Like hanging
Anyways.
from it. Anyway,
do we
I
want?
digress.
I like the. I think my favorite is maybe the fairy scene.
Yeah, that
Um,
one's great.
The final battle
I
isn't
don't.
that.
I don't
like-
love it. Really.
No, it's not that action packed. I think there's more emotional
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
stakes for
Yeah,
him. and
I
to
agree. It's not that
himself.
action packed, but I feel like it didn't need to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't need to be this
necessarily.
big, huge thing. But it's also not my favorite, like, third act
Like
Climax,
closer.
yeah.
climax by any means.
I'd agree with that.
I think the movies that come before, like directly before this, Guardians 2, and
Oh yeah.
and Captain America: Civil War, even Doctor Strange. Those are all like fantastic third act like battles, and this to me is definitely the weakest one out of those.
I'd agree.
Yeah. Great. Are we ready for our review?
Let's do it.
Let's rank this. Any of you guys have like an idea of ranking? Any of y'all have a list, or it's okay if you don't?
Yeah, I totally
No,
jumped.
so
I
how many
totally
times
jumped
You've
into
been
this.
on this podcast.
You still don't have a list?
Well,
I'm
the problem
surprised.
is I've been a little spotty because I haven't watched all the movies with you guys.
That's true.
So I'm frustrated because I feel like I could rank it, but then I also feel like
That's true.
I've missed enough of the movies, especially the movies that I feel like I would really like to like doubt my accuracy.
Yeah.
That's true. I kind of have it in my head like
And I
where I
kind
would
of like
put it.
this is one of the ones that's not. It's not like Avengers or like Civil War. It's kind of like it's not really up. I don't know if it would make top 5. It's kind of more in like the fuzzy, like 5, 6, 7 area, and I'm not sure where exactly it would land.
So for me, this movie, I had it was sandwiched in between Age of Ultron and Iron Man 2. So with number 12 being Age of Ultron, number 13 being Spider-Man Homecoming, number 14 being Iron Man 2. And I know that seems really low, but there's a lot of great stuff that's above that I like more and I think are better movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie, for me, stayed in the same spot in between Age of Ultron and Iron Man 2. While Age of Ultron it's a worse movie and it's more frustrating for me. There is definitely like moments of greatness in that movie that I like thoroughly enjoy more than a lot of this film.
there's
That makes
more.
sense.
It's just there's just more in Age of Ultron.
And there's
Yeah.
like so many like amazing character moments and like important moments
Yeah,
in the MCU.
100%.
it has
that
more
for me,
depth. It
This
has
movie
more
like,
maturity.
outweighs that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm actually going to have to arrange a couple things around this because
That's
you remember.
called rearranging.
For those of you
I
keeping
guess,
score
yeah.
at home.
So, like I've said this for the last few episodes that seeing Spider-Man, it was going to be kind of like I was holding off.
It's the wild card.
Yeah, because I wasn't quite sure how it was going to impact the list. So in like kind of the middle bracket of the MCU, like the top 5 is pretty fixed, the bottom 5 is pretty fixed, but it's kind of like this middle like 6 or 7 that are like pretty loose. And Thor Ragnarok, our last movie, might also change this up. But so in this kind of middle set, I've got Thor Ragnarok, then Doctor Strange, Iron Man, the first one, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Age of Ultron, and then Ant-Man kind of like above my bottom 5. And I think this is all going to shift around a little bit. So I do really like Doctor Strange. I think Avengers Age of Ultron is going to pop up right beneath that. And I think Spider-Man Homecoming is going to pop up above Iron Man as well.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, so Iron Man's going to be just above Ant-Man for me. I love Iron Man. I love that first movie. It's so rewatchable, but I think most of my great enjoyment for that film is nostalgia. And I think just like, and while I still like respect that and honor that, I don't think it getting lower in the list is a sign of like that film's like that it is lacking, but just that we're getting so many other, like as time goes on and this list gets longer and longer and longer, and I think the films are getting consistently better in quality. There's just so many other great films.
I'd agree.
Like, yeah. So that puts this movie, Spider-Man: Homecoming, for me at number 11 or 10.
Nice.
I just made a quick change.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
So
This just in.
Logan's
So
trying to be
I
Superman.
did actually switch Age of Ultron, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and Ant-Man around. So now it goes number 10, Iron Man, number 11, Avengers: Age of Ultron, number 12, Spider-Man, Homecoming, number 13, Ant-Man. So what I did is Ant-Man used to be 11. I knocked it down to 13 with Age of Ultron and Spider-Man: Homecoming moving up 1
Nice.
Okay.
after further reflection.
Really?
Yeah.
So you do
I
like
think there's for me like Ant-Man wasn't as much fun as I remembered
as you
it being.
remembered it, yeah.
And there was just a lot of exposition in that movie.
Yeah.
A whole lot. And I think Paul Rudd is better and like just more charming in Civil War.
Yeah, he is. Any of you guys got any idea kind of you don't even have to necessarily give a whole
No,
list,
yeah.
but just kind of where it fits.
The only thing I would say, and this is kind of a gut reaction, because recently here are the 3 Marvel movies that I've seen in the last like week and a half that are the most recent in my brain, and that's Doctor Strange, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and Civil War. I just watched last
Doctor
week.
Strange was way better than I remembered.
Doctor Strange was better than I remembered, but I also started to fall asleep just because it was so much. And so to me, like if we're going off of like entertainment and like what I
Yeah.
think, this movie sits above Doctor Strange, but it's also very, very, very much below Civil War. So that's kind of in my head. I would also put at least the first Iron Man above this movie.
Okay. And I don't even disagree with you for doing it. I
Good.
think at that
No, I'm
point
kidding.
it's like a matter well, because I was just saying that I like just put it below this.
Yeah,
But
100%.
I think it's just like, yeah. I think that these middle movies are, I think, mostly about opinion and just
Yeah.
kind of preference.
Totally.
For me, this is an excellent foundational film, and I'm so excited to see like how they build on it. But compared to the other MCU movies, it's not super high. Like, I'm kind of with you guys. I'd probably put it in 14 or 15, just off the top of my head.
Oh, 14 or 15 is actually pretty low. There's only 18.
That's to give you. That's where Iron Man 2 and Thor: The Dark World sit with me. Just to give you some
With the Dark
perspective,
That was a lit
Thor the
episode.
which
Bad
I both
Thor.
enjoy more than a lot of people
I
do.
haven't seen those in so long.
Same.
Iron Man 2 is a lot better than you remember.
I believe it.
Probably.
Probably.
Well, any other things? Any other comments?
No, I think
that'll
it wraps
wrap it up.
Spider-Man
Lit.
Homecoming for me.
Yeah, we'll
Ready to
tie
get to
that
some
up.
Thor Ragnarok. Ragnarok. Ragnarok.
Piss off, Ghost.
Peace out, gifts.
Cold.
We're so ready
My
to
name's
talk about Korg. Yeah.
Let the revolution begin.
Listen, Ultimate fans, thanks for joining us. We love doing this, and we're excited to have our guests. We're excited to wrap this up in just a couple of episodes.
Getting so close to Infinity War.
Get your tickets. If you haven't got them yet, get them now. You
Bye,
probably
man.
won't be able to.
Otherwise, your butt gonna be spoiled.
Yeah. And just letting you know, we're still going to have like total spoils on our Thor Ragnarok.
Just like all
review?
of the others' reviews.
But our review of Avengers Infinity War, we'll probably do like the first half spoiler free, but then have a full
more like,
spoilers.
to be in reality, probably more like the first 5 minutes.
For
I'm
2
not gonna
minutes.
wait that long.
You can't
It's
hold
like
anything
staring
back.
at the presents, like on Christmas morning.
We'll
I'm only
have
gonna
a-
look at it for a couple minutes before I tear into
we'll
it.
have somebody sitting there with the buzzer to see how long
Yeah.
you can go.
We'll do our
go.
best. How's that?
That
well,
sounds dope.
in the meantime, if you could give us a like, a subscribe, and even give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you're listening to us, that really helps us out. And you can follow us and interact with us on all of your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all at Ultimate Fan Podcast.
We want to talk about these movies with you, so come talk to them with us.
Come talk about them with us.
To
Yeah.
them.
Step into my room. Nerddom.
Into our DMs specifically. Yeah, but really, we'd love to interact with you guys. We want you to get in on the conversation. So, what do you think about Spider-Man Homecoming? Is it the best Spider-Man movie? Is it the worst Spider-Man movie? And where does it fit in the MCU for you? Let us know.
Which is the better sidekick, Korg or Ned? Let me know.
Korg's a rock monster, but Ned is pretty funny.
He is the man in the chair.
Yeah. I can't believe, also, listeners, Logan, this is like, what, your 4th time seeing this movie?
Something like that. Yeah.
Logan didn't catch the whole like running gag about the man, like guy in
The
the chair
chair.
thing until just this viewing.
That's crazy. It's
In my
littered.
defense, Ned likes to mumble.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
That's not a good defense,
Not
but
as
okay.
easy.
On that note, I think we'll wrap it up. Once again,
Also, feel free to follow me on like my personal
Oh, yeah.
accounts at Logan Flaming on pretty much Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I post about all the stuff all the time, so come feel free to follow me and just come talk about all this stuff with me as well.
yeah. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.